My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Rachel Darden. She's an actress and a comedian, and today we're talking about insecurities in actors and artists, and how wealth inequality plays a role not only in people's inability to access the consumption of art, but also the creation of art, and how theater and art can be a perfect place for human connection and acceptance. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Rachel Darden. Is it actor, actress? Is that a thing?
I use actor. I won't be insulted if you say actress. And then sometimes I'll hear myself say female actor, and I'm like, there's a word for that. It's called actress.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay, so we were talking, and I had this realization that musicians and producers and songwriters have this tendency to be really afraid of their output.
Yeah.
But actors don't.
Right.
Can you explain how that works?
It works because we're superior. No. What I feel like I heard you say when we were talking last night with Carrie is that actors don't have insecurities, which makes me just laugh so hard.
I don't actually believe that.
but we're basically the most insecure people on the planet. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's true for any art, that you're making something so deeply personal and putting it out into the world, and then everyone just feels entitled to shit all over it.
Right.
I feel like for me, I can only speak for me, that as a theater actor especially, that there is some peace in that you do the thing and it's gone. And that's what's beautiful about it, and that's what's magical about it, and it's what's infuriating about it when you have a great night and it's like, well, only 500 people will ever see that, and it's the best work I ever did, and then the next night it's just shit, and you're like, well, at least only 500 people saw that, and they'll never see it again. And so, for me at least, there's a bit of peace in that. It's like you just put it out into the world, and whatever it is gone. So, like, why worry?
My perception comes from seeing directors beating people up on stage on purpose to be like, open up. Yeah. I mean, I'm sometimes to a degree that's disgusting to me, but.
Right. Yeah. And to me, that's just bad directing. Did you watch Barry on HBO?
I don't remember it.
It's Henry Winkler plays an acting teacher who does exactly that. And there's more of a reputation for that happening on film because you get that very immediate reaction. In my experience, when that happens, it's not a director trying to get good work. It's a director on an ego trip. It's a director who doesn't know what to do, so they're trying. I don't know.
They're directors with bad egos?
Oh, yeah, shocking, right? Yeah. That anyone in the arts would have egos. That anyone running a ship would have an ego.
Right.
Yeah, and like as actors too. I think as artists, but as actors, it's our job to be open and sensitive. And I've seen this a lot where people are like, oh, that person was such a jerk. How could they say that? I had a cohort member who would call one of our teachers, oh, he was a bully. He bullied me. I was like, he was the only one who was honest to us in our entire MFA career. And we should be so lucky that we got to work with him, And I know that he began to just back away from our class because he felt like he couldn't do his job and do his work, which was to create actors.
Because of the response of the actors?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious what you think about this. I feel like it's a generational thing that, younger and younger folks just have this expectation that be nice to me. You must be nice to me. And it's like, yes, but sometimes there's a difference between nice and kind. And I think it's a kindness to be honest with someone.
Yeah.
Where people are like, that was mean. And it's like, but.
I feel defensive for a younger generation when I hear people say the younger generation. Mm-hmm. I'm immediately like, wait a minute, how am I going to defend them? Because a lot of the films that I've done have been focused on championing younger demographics coming into an older workforce. Yeah. And I see rock stars all the time. They're just people that are not part of what a stereotype would be.
Yeah.
However, I do think I do see a trend towards like, well, that's inconvenient for me.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of things I've been accused of me saying that for myself really through my years has been like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to
Yeah.
Show up 40 hours a week if it takes me 35 to do the job, because sometimes I'm going to show up 50.
Yeah.
But for me to have to like clock in at this time and clock out at that time, and that to actually matter for anything, it seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unless my presence has any immediate benefit to anybody else. But otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah.
Well, I just hear what you're saying, that there is a lot of stuff that Gen Z specifically, because they're the ones who are coming up now, where it's like, oh yeah, mental health does matter.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that into the conversation. But it's a balance. It's a balance. And especially, I feel like in theater, where there is a timeline, there is a go date.
Mm-hmm.
And are we going to work as a group to reach a level that we are proud to present to the world? Or are we going to say, that's 40 hours, I'm done, and there's a balance?
Right.
And I do think we're in a time where we're finding that balance, which is great. But there's always going to be push and pull, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that brings up a question having to do with the difficulty and the perfectionism of art. Now, granted, I guess the benefit of the deadline of we've got a show date, we have to get it as good as we can up to that point and then be done. Seems like that would have benefit because I have a tendency to get stuck because I don't have to release something at a specific time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think
I'm the only one that does that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No other artist has ever struggled with motivation.
No, or releasing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, when you do, and I almost said director, but it's really stage managers. Like, stage managers are the heroes, the unsung heroes of the theater world. Stage managers should run the world. I have always said, but then who would run theater? So, and selfishly, I'm like, let's keep them in the theater.
What does a stage manager do?
They're the right-hand person to the director, and they create the schedules. During rehearsal, they are writing down all of the blocking. They are writing down every note. They are writing down, what do we need to ask costumes for? What do we need to ask scenic? Will there be a bench here? All of these things. They keep it all organized. But then once the show gets going and the director leaves, they're in charge. And this might be biased. A good director says the stage manager is in charge from day one,
That makes sense. The director's job is to get the performance out of the actors, but not.
Yeah. And so
to make sure the show actually succeeds.
Yeah. And a stage during a performance, the stage manager is the one who is calling all of the cues, lights go, sound go, scene be read, this, that, and the other. They're on headset, and their communication with every tech person in the theater. Anyone who has a headset on is answering directly to the stage manager, and then you have assistant stage managers in the wings who are relaying those directions to people without headsets and whatnot. But they're a very humble god, is what that's a better way to say it. They're a very humble god.
What's your favorite part to play in all of acting and theater?
I love being an actor. I've had opportunities recently to teach and to coach scenes, and I really am sort of falling in love with that and working with people. I was able to assistant direct on a play, and I was like, this is so. I just spiked the lens, just so you know that.
That's fine. That's fine. Wave.
Hey,
it doesn't matter.
Can't not.
It's okay.
I had an opportunity to assistant direct, and I was like, this is so cool. You just get to sit around and hear everybody's best ideas and greenlight them, or be like, I love the enthusiasm on that idea. It's not working.
That's what we call awkward.
Yeah. That was bad. No, but it's like, and like I was assistant directing. That wasn't my job.
Yeah.
But being in a place where I could watch a director and be like, oh, this is what I think a good director does, is just greenlight good ideas and structure them. It's more than just like, okay, you do all the work.
That's awesome. So in your ideal world, moving forward in the next 5 or 10 years, what would you be doing? Or what do you think you want to be doing?
That's a great question. I definitely want to be out working for a while, but in the long term, I could see myself going into academia and teaching acting and directing shows and and fostering the next generation. I don't know. There's just something. I just got my master's degree, and so I was TAing, and I taught a class, and I had 3 different students come to me and say, hey, can we work on auditions and whatnot? And all 3 of them got, either cast or understudy, or they were happy with their results. And Seth, when I tell you, I have never been happy. Like, to hear that they got that part or succeeded made me happier than, like, I'm going to get emotional, made me happier than any role I have ever landed. It was just like, they did it. We did it. You tried and you succeeded, and I'm so happy for you. And I had a young woman who, like, she didn't get the thing and she was so disappointed. But then the way things work, somebody dropped out, this, that, or the other. She ended up getting a part. And she was like, yeah, I'm like, honey, I was waitlisted for this program. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, you take the opportunities you're given and you don't look back. Like, just like this, it's such a fickle business. It's such a fickle, like, everyone has their own ideal and own objective and, like, this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean people don't like you. Just take the opportunities and run and never look back.
That's awesome. So you're wanting to work for a while is to be able to gain the experience to really bring value to students later. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, that's part of it. And it's also just a practicality thing. If I went out and tried to get a university job right now, people would be like, you're adorable. Don't waste our time.
Yeah.
But then also, yes, just to be able to provide real world experience and value. And also, I do want to just go out and work and have fun and do that thing. I'm entering this part of my career later than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also daunting to look at and be like, yeah, I'll work a few years, but then I would like steady income, and I would like to know where I'm going to be sleeping for the next 2 years of my life, or, whatever it is.
Right. What does financial success look like for an actor in reality?
Oh, that's different for everyone.
I'm not talking numbers. I'm talking like stability. Is there a place other than academia to...
Right. Oh, other than academia. I mean, yes and no. Like, my biggest representation of working actors is in the Denver scene and in the Knoxville scene. And there's really no acting scene in Knoxville. If you're an actor, a successful actor in Knoxville, you're working at the University of Tennessee and teaching as well, most likely. In Denver, there are a lot of working actors who also teach. It's not necessarily in academia. It's at the Denver Center Education Program, or, teaching improv classes, or coaching an after-school program, or things like that. I know very few actors who make a living strictly by acting. And, you make an argument. If you're teaching acting, then you're doing the thing. And
Right.
Yeah. I believe that. I'm not one of those people. Those who can't teach. No. I feel like for a lot of the actors that I know, and for me, we just want to be able to pay our bills and have a cushion and spend the majority of our working life doing something that speaks to us.
Right.
And I think that's true for a lot of artists. It's like, I want to do the work and I don't want to worry about getting sick. Like, if I get sick, I want to know I can go to the hospital and not be in debt. And that's...
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
Are you only stage, or you film as well? Or are you, what's your...
Anymore you have to do it all. We were talking about that a little bit last night. I love stage. There's something really intriguing about on-camera stuff that, like, it's more subtle in so many ways. And it's in so many ways it's more real, but it's less real. Like, when you're on stage and it's just you're going for 2 hours, that's incredible. You just ride that train, But it's also, you have to play to the house, and you have to do your consonants and this, and turn out. And it's just a whole different set of technique for on camera that I'm really fascinated by.
Yeah.
But it's also just like, oof, that's just one more iron in the fire. That's one more technique that needs a lot of work, and that's daunting. And I keep saying I want to do stand-up and get on stage and do stand-up, but
Cool.
Talk about, like, putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
But also immediate response. I think that's why a lot of people get addicted to stand-up, is that you have immediate feedback on what people think about you. And if they're laughing, you feel pretty good.
Right.
They're not.
Has social media stuff fed that excitement?
A little bit, just because early on I got some response to videos that I did. I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. That people do think I'm funny. Okay. And so, yeah, there is a little bit. But then, like, I'm kind of over social media just because you don't have that visceral, like, immediate response and, like, in-person response that you get from theater or you get from doing stand-up comedy. So, yeah, I just need to put on my big girl pants set. Then,
When is your first stand-up show?
that's a great question. And I just watched a masterclass on habits, and he said that you have to make dates. And I have not done that yet. I'll probably wait till I'm back in Denver. Just Denver has a really good stand-up scene and open mics and this, that, and the other. So goals for the next 2 months is to, like, write, get some stuff, get material. Because it's all up here. It's like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get it on paper and get it in a way that you can consistently repeat it concisely. Because that's part of it, too. It's like, oh, this is funny, but now it needs to be funny.
How would you stereotype thespians coming
Loud.
into loud? Okay.
Sorry, finish your question.
I love it.
I won't interrupt your question. That probably affects the cut.
No, it's fine. It's good. Okay, so they're loud. I mean, as far as character types, to me, it feels like there's a stereotype, but that's me being ignorant as well.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of outliers, right? But
Yeah.
I guess what makes it, this sounds like a different question, but it seems like the same path for me. Like, what makes the culture healthy for certain types of people?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I talk a lot, and this is very reductive, but I'm going to start reductive and grow from there. I've always said that there are two types of actors, those who want attention and those who want to tell a story. And there's definite crossover. There's, 49, 51 and whatnot. I feel like the healthiest actors, I feel like the actors that I enjoy being around the most are the ones who are in it for the story. Mm-hmm. Because if you're in it for the attention, it's just, you're always chasing the dragon, I feel like. And that's, and I feel like it's more sustainable when it's just, my goal is to tell a good story. Mm-hmm. And if that's your goal and you're proud of your work, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say that. Of course you want a good review. Of course you want your dad to say, oh, you did a good job. And now we're on to daddy issues. No, it's to be healthy as an actor. What are stereotypes as an actor? I mean, it is, there's a big, we do our work at night, and then you go out and you drink and you laugh and you do this and that, and you're not in bed till 2, 3 in the morning, and then there's a huge social aspect to what we do, and that's wonderful. But the actors that I see sustaining and working are the ones who can mediate that, and the actors who are introverts, I think people think that, especially stage actors, they're all extroverts. And there are a lot of loud, extroverted actors. But I feel like the introverted actors who are just like, great show, everyone, thanks so much, and go home and take care of themselves. And like, I just feel like I see them sustaining just because I was going to say habits, but it's not even habits. It's just the way they live their lives because that's how they were built. And I don't know. Now I'm just saying stuff to say stuff.
My perception from the outside is that it's a very open culture as far as accepting and loving people where they're at and want to collaborate more so than most other things that I see.
I feel like acting for a lot of people is the first place, I shouldn't say acting, the theater community is the first place a lot of young people have ever felt fully accepted. And that just fills my heart, especially growing up in a conservative town like we did, I saw so many people who just came to the theater to be seen for who they are and accepted for who they are. And I feel like that maintains into adulthood. There are so many people whose chosen family is the theater. And whether that's because their real family hasn't accepted them or just because their biological family just doesn't really understand. You know, they love you the best they can, but in the theater is where I can truly be me. And that's beautiful. I don't know if that answers any
You know, it's
question.
good. Yeah. I mean, it's more of just a conversation about how do we encourage more of that outside of theater.
Yeah. Do you find that in music? Did you feel that in band growing up?
I don't think the band required the level of intimacy that theater does. So you're collectively working together to play notes, and
Yeah.
notes that might move everyone, but it's not as psychologically in depth, it feels. Maybe I'm wrong on that. That was my experience, at least. You know, like the theater kids were a lot more, well, louder,
Yeah.
but also more diverse as far as a group goes. You know, there'd be people in theater that you're like, I thought you were too cool for theater, or people in theater that you're like, I can't believe you're too shy to be up on stage. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's like, wow, there's something about that that's interesting. And other than serving at a theater in Grand Junction, what was the cabaret? What's it called?
Oh, the cabaret.
Well, I know, but like, what's it? What's that?
Ushering?
No, it's a. What's the type of venue called? It's
A dinner theater.
dinner theater.
Oh,
There
you
go.
served at the cabaret?
I did, because then I played at the Spotlight after,
Yeah.
right, for the piano stuff.
Yeah.
Which also brings up another thing. I'm introverted,
Yeah.
but stage is always a lot easier for me. Like being up on stage is great because if I'm in the crowd, I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do
Yeah.
in a crowd.
Well,
So
and
I
think
don't like going to shows. Like, you know.
Yeah. But I think a lot of introverts are drawn to performing because this is what you say, this is the expectation, and it's like, great.
Right. Perfect.
It's all planned out. But I think too with theater, there are so many aspects of it that it can bring in such a diverse group of people. You know, you have audio engineers and light engineers and set designers and set builders and costumers and tech people. And then even just within acting, there are so many different kinds of roles that there really is something for everyone if you truly want to do theater.
Right.
Whereas with something like band, it's like, are you good at music? Are you, like that's interesting.
Is there, okay, so let me say with bands and musicians and sound people, there's
Yeah.
a kind of a joke, not joke, depending on who it is, that there's like a competition between the two. Is there anything like that in theater, that even like a stereotype? In other words, like the acting stage versus like the tech crew or something?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
There's like cliques and you're like, stupid actors and
Oh,
stupid tech crew. Like you do that on
yes.
purpose. Okay.
Yes. And like there's definitely a stereotype amongst techies that actors are high maintenance and a little flighty and this, that, and the other. And yeah. So at the end of the day, I do think there's a lot of love. But
Totally.
there's one of those, like, how many people does it take to change a light bulb? And there's like a whole theater one where it stereotypes everyone, where it's like stage men are already done. Like actors don't do it. They just stand there and talk about how they would do it better, which is like, okay. The director will just tell you how to do it, how to change the light bulb. But,
That's funny.
yeah.
How is theater, obviously I'm sure COVID had a little bit of an effect on it, but how is it, its acceptance and growth, and how's it changing as a industry?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't recovered from COVID, that's for sure. And now we're going to get into politics, Seth. I truly think people would love to see theater a lot more than they do. They just can't afford it. And I don't think that's the theater's problem. I think that's a social problem. I think more people need to have money in their pockets. And I do think the theater has a responsibility in saying to their donors, because most theaters survive on donor money. Very few theaters are in the black because of ticket sales. That's just not how it works. And I think it's the responsibility of the theater to say to big donors, thank you so much. We know you do this because you love it. We respect the fact that you personally cannot keep us afloat. And we are asking you to pay your employees better. We are asking you to vote for people who are going to raise the minimum wage. And the theaters would never say that because a lot of these donors are conservative people, are conservative old white people. Mm-hmm. And that's the conversation that I think that the theater wants to avoid, but also a big change that's happening in theater where you have all of these old white people who are dying off and the torch hasn't been passed because it hasn't been allowed to be passed. Yeah. And you know, since 2020, after George Floyd, there was a huge push to put diverse stories on stage, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I think most theaters would tell you those stories just don't sell as well because the majority of the theater-going population are old white people. And they're like, why would I want to see a story about Black people? And it's hard to pull people of color into the theater because it has been a historically unfriendly place, to be euphemistic, to people of color. But also, how do you expect me to spend $50 a ticket to go see a show when I can't make rent because you're not paying me well enough and you've redlined my property and there's not a simple solution by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that's the switch we're seeing right now is how do we get more people into the theater? How do we get younger people into the theater? How do we get more diverse people into the theater? And it might be, it might be moving away from large productions, which, we love spectacle, but doing smaller, more focused productions. I don't know. Now I'm just...
No, I mean, okay, so theater to me has always seemed like a exceptionally expensive quest for a really tiny potential output of exposure, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, it's like, how do you possibly, because even legally, you can't stream it usually because of rights and whatever. Maybe it'd be healthy to have the conversation around why should people that have never experienced theater be motivated to go at least check it out? What does theater do for society?
Yeah.
Like, why are you passionate about it?
Yeah, I mean...
You mean to ask it 7 more ways. Just kidding.
In a nutshell. Yeah. I think good theater holds up a mirror to society. And I think good theater starts conversations. I think a lot of bad theater is preachy and trying to tell people, this is the solution. And to me, that's bad theater. Good theater starts a conversation. I think especially since most theaters are run by white people and have traditionally been run by white people, we're like, we know what to do. It's like, no, we don't. We absolutely don't. And I think a lot of people right now feel preached at when they go to theater that's meant to be moving or educational or this, that, or the other. And it's like, just start the conversation. That's our job, is to start the conversation. We don't have to have a solution. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're 40 people in a room. Like, right. So I think that's part of it. But I was telling you the other night that my favorite shows to do are the student matinees, when you have an entire theater full of kids who are hyped up because they're on a field trip and they're not in class, and no one has told them, you have to be quiet in the theater. You can't cheer. You can't woo-woo or, whatever. You have a room full of kids who are losing their minds because Belle and Scrooge just kissed on the cheek. It's like, you can't tell me young people don't like theater. Yeah. I'm sitting here and, and I've heard so many actors say the same thing. There was a TikTok I watched, because I watch way too many TikToks. They were filming from the wings at a student matinee of Fiddler on the Roof. And these kids were so invested. And so you can't tell me kids don't like theater. I don't know how to bridge the gap from that one moment of seeing a play on a field trip in 3rd grade and now you're 27 with disposable income. What should I do on a Friday night or a Tuesday night? how do you convince that person to go see the theater? Because that whole time frame in between, they've been told theater is boring. And
So in a perfect world, outside of let's just say everybody has, let's say theater's free, and income's not an issue, and diversity is all accepted and all well practiced in the same vein. How do you summarize like the overall impact of theater, like your efforts over the next 5 or 10 years in theater and what it does for culture and society and communities?
connection, I think telling stories, that's what we want as humans at our core, I think, is to tell stories and to hear stories and be connected through stories and see how we're similar through stories as opposed to how we're different. So in a perfect society where, it's Star Trek in whatever year that was, people go to the theater just to be entertained. Like, let's not pretend that's not a huge part of it. To be entertained and to feel connected and to sit next to your neighbor and be like, we both thought that was funny.
Yeah.
There's just something about that. There's the Laugh Factory. Is it the Laugh Factory? The Comedy Cellar. I should know this. There's a comedy club in Denver that's actually kind of famous, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's in a basement and the ceiling is really low. And comedians say they love performing in that space because since the ceiling's so low and you're packed in like sardines, that the laughter just catches on. And they're like, I'm funnier in this room than I am over here. And a friend of mine is a firefighter. And he's like, this is a nightmare. This is an absolute nightmare. We should not be here. But that's what I think good theater in a perfect world is too, where it's just remembering that we are connected to people through story.
Yeah. For me, being from the outside, in a movie, there's this perfection that you can put on, right? Like you can make it whatever you want it to be. Obviously that takes work and is a whole different art form. I'm not minimizing that. There's still the script and there's the music and there's the writing, but there's like a spectacle of theater that it's like, you're forcing people to suspend their belief to some degree, like to get on board with what's happening.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, can you explain what that means to you, like from a psychological standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, as kids, we do that all the time, or we did that all the time. And at some point, we start believing that that's a silly thing to do.
Right.
And I guess for me, it's like, so yeah, suspend your disbelief. I also think there's something about live theater that people, they would never fully admit it, but they kind of want something to go wrong because it's exciting.
Yes.
And
that's why we like blooper reels.
Yes. And it's so exciting. It's exciting to watch actors handle it well.
Yes.
And it's mortifying to watch actors handle it poorly.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Question for you. Do you enjoy going to the theater?
When I saw Wicked, I was blown away.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had never seen theater that was exciting for me to go to, except for the resonance of the people that I went with who were typically theater people, and they were excited. So
Yeah.
don't take this the wrong way, but I'm not a sports person. Going to a sports game is not very fun. Like I don't see the excitement or draw to that at all. Theater felt like that to me. I did not know what I was going into when I saw Wicked in New York on Broadway or whatever. I don't know if it was on Broadway, but like it was like, whoa, that was something different.
And
it was
what
really
was it?
cool.
Was it the spectacle of it, the quality, like the level?
I mean, the story was freaking great. Yeah, the quality was great. The singing was insane. I mean, the sound production. I mean, it was like live performance the way that people had been attempting in my past experience.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that I saw something well done.
Yeah.
It's almost like I had been seeing student films and that's what movies were to me. And then I got to see, Lord of the Rings or Forrest Gump or something, it's like, they're like, what? That was crazy and super thoughtful and really, anyway. So
what's the last play you saw?
Probably Wicked. Yeah,
Really?
I don't know. It's not, it's a good question. Granted, I don't tend to want to go to crowded places where it's potentially loud and surprising. And
Yeah.
I'm more of a movie person or something if I'm going to do that. And even then, if I'm alone, I'm not going to watch movies probably.
Yeah.
So, but I'm open to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you, if anyone was ever like, we need a pianist in the pit, we need a sound mixer, would you ever, no, why not?
I don't enjoy that.
Okay.
I would do it as a favor to a friend.
Yeah.
But there's not something that would that's not something I would ever want to do.
Really?
No, I don't really enjoy, I'm not really a huge fan of like live performance stuff either.
Yeah. So you don't miss that at all, live performance?
No, I burned out and stopped for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'll get back into it at some point, but I've been going to some of the jazz improv nights occasionally with some friends here in Nashville. And that's like, okay, those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
I haven't stepped on stage yet, but they're that can be fun.
Yeah.
But again, it's like kind of for a period of time, and then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
What if somebody approached you and said, I'm writing a musical, will you help me with the score?
Yeah. I would love that. That would be fun.
It's going to be a year of your life, and you'd be...
I mean, I don't think I'd be spending there's nothing that I want to do every day, all the time, forever.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my weeks right now are, film a podcast, do the editing, write some music, hopefully co-write. I'm planning ideally a trip here in a little bit. I've got a plan for some of the films that I've got to go direct. It's like that kind of playing in all the different camps is more my happy place. Like I don't think I would commit to something that took 40 hours a week for a year for any price,
Fair enough.
I don't think, but the idea of helping with a musical and creating, the notes and the music and the chords and the production, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
I would really enjoy that. Yeah.
I knew you were a theater person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's what I mean.
Fine.
There's something for everyone. So when you say you have films that you're directing, are they narrative films? Or are they no?
No, I do all documentary short films for industrial clients. Like it's like very niched,
Would you ever do like a narrative short project just to see?
It would have to be a really, really, really moving script to me for me to feel like I was the right person for it. I think is the best way to put it.
Okay.
If somebody came to me with a ridiculously high budget to shoot a film that they shouldn't be asking me to do anyway because I'm not that director, I think my answer would be find the right director.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the right director for it.
Yeah.
I love documentary. I love these types of conversations where I get to learn something new and have good, thoughtful ideas exchanged. And then I take those sections of these types of conversations with industrial clients and cut, 8 hours of content, or Ash helps, or, somebody does to cut it down to 2.5 minutes.
Where do you even begin with that when you have 8 hours of footage and know you have to get it to 2.5 minutes? Where do you even begin?
So I think Ash uses the hero's journey style of a flow of like pulling content that helps find, where that moment of vulnerability is and all the transitions and stuff. For me, I just start cutting down personally, like as I cut through a bunch of them, I'll cut it down to 20 or 30 minutes of content.
Okay.
And they're like just the best moments, and then that becomes 12 minutes, and then that becomes 8, and then there's 5, and you feel like it's impossible to cut anything.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a slow unpacking for me.
Yeah.
So it's more, it's longer for me to do it than for some other people. But what I don't ever want to do is show up and say, here's what you need to say.
Right.
I hate that, and I feel it when I see somebody else do it on camera, even with top actors and movies. I don't know, it just feels weird. I think that's the thing. It's like, even I like movies, so I do, but narrative work feels a little disconnected to me from reality. And it's like, I really love documentary stuff because it's, even though it's produced and it's cut, and a lot of times, but you can feel that. I really love like the honest moments, the aha moments that you get when you're talking with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're working on it, are there moments where you're like, that's making the final cut?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'll go in and ask questions that no one has ever asked these people about their business.
Yeah.
And I'm coming in with a perspective from every other business that I had spoken to, and know that these are questions that really help them understand themselves better
Yeah.
as leaders, or their company better.
Right.
Do
you, when you start these projects, do these folks that you're interviewing have any idea that they're getting ready to like actually be asked thoughtful, sincere questions, or are they just?
I think so, but it always goes a little harder than they want, or than they maybe not want, than they expect.
Yeah.
For sure, which is good. I don't want them to be thinking about it. I just want it to come out when it does.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are just they've got their act, and that's what they do, and they're not willing to push into that deeper part of it. And a lot of people, like way more people, are open to like talking about the hard things.
Yeah.
And trusting me. That's like one of the hardest things at first was that clients wanted scripts. And I was like, I don't do scripts.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, but we have to. And I'm like, I'm the wrong director then.
Yeah.
Like, hire somebody else. Like, if you want to give me like bullet points that we're hoping to hit during all of these interviews, like, I'll do that. But I'm not going to take a script and try to figure out how to make that sound natural as people. It's just boring to me, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, personally, like I just don't like it. I don't like the way the films turn out. It's like other people do a really good job with it, but that's not me.
Yeah.
So, but there's, I guess there's waste in that though. Not waste. It's not efficient, fast, or safe.
Right.
But that ultimately ends up with the product that we get.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This masterclass that I was listening to, it was talking about a photography professor who split his class in half and said, this class, you have 5 chances to get the best photo. And this half, you can take as many photos as you want. I don't care. And the better photos came from the people who had as many chances as possible because they were out there, they were learning their cameras, they were learning lighting, and they didn't have the pressure of coming up with the best photo.
No.
Whereas the folks who were tasked spent so much time thinking, well, what makes a good photo? This, that, and the other. And it's like, nope, you got to throw shit at the wall.
Yep.
And I think that's all art.
I love that.
But in a capitalistic society, there's no room for that. It's like, nope, efficiency, save money.
Yep.
Like, it's...
In practice, I'm the study forever to try to figure out the way to take one of the best 5 shots. And what I'm trying to move into now that I'm, 40 and going to continue trying to learn how to just disengage from it. The goal would be to do how many of these can I?
Yeah.
I mean, like, release more songs, release more podcasts. I mean, obviously thoughtful and good podcasts, but good songs and whatever, but don't overthink it.
Yeah. And it's so obvious when you say it, like, you learn by doing. The more you do, the better you'll get. But yeah, there's that part of our brain who's like, no, but I'm so afraid of what people say or it being bad or this, that, or the other. And you talked about it a little bit the other day. It's like, nobody cares about your shit.
Nope.
That's so depressing when you say it, but it's also so liberating. It's like, you're the only person who's really watching this.
Yep.
And until it gets good enough that people are like, oh, wow.
Right.
And the only way you get there is doing all of this shit that nobody cares about.
Yep.
Just liberate yourself. Nobody cares about it.
Yep.
And this is the conversation I'm constantly having in my head. I'm not sitting here being like, and I've mastered this.
Right. Yeah, you just make it sound easy. I'm kidding.
Because it is.
Right, exactly. No, but I guess, objectively, if you think about how many, again, just TikToks or whatever, you look through them, so many of them are bad. And I never, ever think, wow, that person's an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, that person is not worth the breath that they are breathing.
I'm proud of them for trying and creating something,
Yeah, at worst, you're just like, not for me, scroll.
Yeah.
And how does that affect? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what's the answer to maximizing more creativity for society moving forward?
more.
That's a dumb question. Let me.
I mean, it's all half these are going to end up back in politics with me. Give people more money, give people more security, give people, and that's what's so funny to me is like movies like Wall-E, or we look at like these predictions of the future from the 50s. It's like everyone will have so much downtime and robots will run everything, and we're like, that's great. In reality, it just means that the wealth is being consolidated for 200 assholes, and the rest of us are left to do what?
How do you think technology can,
Yeah.
in the right hands,
Yeah.
right, allow for greater equity, for better access to art and experiencing, like being part of and going to experience it for fun?
Yeah, it's a question of sharing the wealth, of distribution, of letting technology make our lives easier, and then not hoarding the profit of that. Just like when we watch movies like Wall-E, or the predictions of the future from the 50s, that our lives would be so easy because robots were going to do everything. And we're reaching that place, except the profit from all of that is going to a small handful of people who have, what is it, a copyright or proprietor's knowledge? I don't know. And we're being denied the future we hoped for. We're being denied the reality of what could exist, which is more time for us just to create art. But everyone's so like pissed off at Nepo babies. And I'm like, yeah, it's a bummer. But also these kids have the time and money to do anything, and they're consistently choosing art. Because I think as people, that's what we want to do.
What's a Nepo baby?
Nepotism, where you have children of actors or directors or producers or whatever who are now on stage and screen, and because they had the door open for them. And that I don't love that, but at the same time, I don't love that because it's like, oh, scarcity, that means one less opportunity for me.
Right.
It's like, but we all just want to make art. Mm-hmm. And the problem isn't the Nepo babies. The problem is you have people hoarding resources that deny the rest of us the ability to do the things we want to do, as opposed to working for Instacart.
Yeah.
I would much rather a robot deliver someone's groceries than me do it and get a $2 tip.
I agree.
We live in a society where there's enough for everyone, and it's being denied.
So my belief personally is that we're a few years out from that being practically available. This is not in any argument to what you're saying. I also am just generally, I generally am skeptical of like the corporate overlords having like a general intention to take it away from poor people, right? Like, I don't think that that's how people operate. I think it's more that education and practice, like the reason that they become successful is that they know how to retain wealth, right? And so what is, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm just, what is an idea, an answer to like help motivate how to redistribute that?
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want babies to starve today.
Yeah.
But when you take a step back and realize that that's what your actions are doing and make no change, that's a problem.
Yeah.
When you have enough money to end hunger in America and actively choose not to, that's a problem for me. When you spend $40,000 to tank an app just because you were butthurt about something instead of ending hunger in America, that's a problem for me, you know? And so...
And just so I know the reference, you said 40,000 to end an app. Are you talking about
40 billion? Did I say 40,000? I definitely meant 40 billion.
Yeah, I was like, that seems like a small dollar amont for
no,
a
that's a small. No, to be specific, I'm talking about Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly.
if it was unclear,
that's what I assumed. I just when you said 1,000, I was like, what app did you shut down for 40?
Right. We just have to as a society, we have to agree that that's not okay, that starving babies aren't okay, that starving anyone is not okay.
Yeah.
And then how do we resolve that?
So circling back around, is there a way for art and theater to be the mechanism that helps educate people as a whole to solve those problems? Or is there even a better mechanism for it?
I feel like that's out of my league. I mean, of course, the artist in me wants to be like, yes, that there is a place for art and theater. And I do feel that. I also think that politics is theater. So
Yes.
how do we? Yeah, I've often thought I need to put on a pair of pearls and be like, oh yes, I am running as a conservative leader, and and then be like, psych,
Would not be the
I'm
first.
a leftist.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting my theater degree to use. Yes, I believe there's a place for theater and art in that. Do I have an answer for what that looks like? No.
Yeah.
Other than create community. And I do think that is a big part of it. I do think we're getting more and more separated from each other with our devices and with our phones, and that's a problem. And I think there is room. I think theater does have a place in bringing us back together and reminding us we have more in common than not. How we do that, that's... whew.
So is there a way for theater or art in general to be the mechanism that helps create that greater equity of not only access, but involvement in theater and
Yeah.
the world?
I mean, obviously I want the answer to be yes. And I do believe the answer is yes. And it's theater was used in Appalachia a lot, which I learned when I was in Tennessee. It was used as a civil rights tool to talk to communities in Appalachia, and I think that's incredible. So I think, yes, very specifically in ways like that, but I think broader, just what we were talking about earlier, and that it's a place where people can go to feel accepted, and it's a place where people can go and feel community. I was reading your little placard right outside your kitchen that there's a Mother Teresa quote that says, if you want to help with world peace, go home and love your family. And I think that's what art can be, just building community in these small ways. And it doesn't have to just be small, but when I think of myself as a person, I'm like, I don't know what to do to make the world a better place. I know what I believe. I know what I want to see. And I was like, well, then just go and create that any moment you have. And that's hard enough, right?
Yeah, it is. I have another question that is pretty pointed, and there's not a correct or wrong answer, of course. Do you feel like you're generally more hopeful or nihilistic for the future of the world?
I mean, truly, if I'm being honest, nihilistic. Truly.
Yeah.
But if that's what I truly, truly believed at my core, then why am I even sitting here? But I am. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
I think I'm more hopeful. So I have a tendency to be, I think, maybe not, right? But I think I have a tendency to feel more excited about the future maybe than for today. And my tendency is to want to be like, okay, well, if there's a problem, how do I fix it? Not, I'm stuck under the pressure of things I can't control.
Yeah.
Even though functionally I cannot make Russia or Ukraine or China or Taiwan or the South Korea. I mean, like, I can't control any of that.
Yeah.
Nothing that I do probably would have an impact at least on all of them. If I had some films that were pointed specifically at certain ideas, I might move a needle a little bit, but I practically, I realize I can't control any of those outcomes or any of those pain points, but I do feel hopeful. And particularly, we're talking about corporations or people that are not wealthy, struggling. And I don't know. I do feel like there's hope for part of it. Sorry, hope for a better world that's more equitable. I think part of it's going to be forced upon the entire world because AI is going to require something along the lines of universal basic income.
And that's what I hope for, but I agree with you. That's what I want, and that's what there is the potential to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you watch people who have the potential to do so much of that now not do it, and those are the folks calling the shots, that's what terrifies me.
I just think the problems are going to become so bad so fast that there won't be an answer that makes any more sense than to pay for people's rent and healthcare and things because an entire collection of humanity will be unemployable because there's just a better way to do it all, you know? And I'm not advocating, just to be clear, I get both sides. Like people are like, yeah, let's get to it right now. And there's the like, don't take any of my money, or where's the money going to come from? And my point is more that it's inevitable and we're going to have to figure it out, not trying to argue one way or the other.
Yeah. And I guess I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's inevitable. For me, it's how we get there and how do we make that as least painful as possible. Where I feel like I heard you say there's going to be a breaking point and then we have to. And I'd rather not reach that breaking point. I'd rather us care for as many people now and get to that place in a gentler way. And I don't see that happening.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's what scares me, is that we have the potential to do it now and do it gently and do it compassionately, and we're not. And we're seeing what happens when we have to take the hardest route. We're seeing that with Israel and Palestine right now. And I definitely don't want to pretend I know the solution and I know what I'm talking about, but I'm also not going to say I don't believe in a free Palestine. I believe in a free Palestine, And so how do we get there in a gentle and equitable way?
That's where I think my hopefulness comes in, where like, I don't know. I'm hopeful because I don't have to solve that and I can't.
Yeah.
Which is not fair.
Yeah.
Because somebody needs to. But if I focus on that, I don't focus on my family.
Yeah.
And that's important too.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely important. And I think people know that. I think the people in charge know that and keep us focused on surviving, keep us focused on keeping our families alive and fed, or just yourself alive and fed. And as long as you're focusing on you, you can't focus on the bigger stuff. And call me a conspiracy theorist, but I do think it's by design, people in power. I do think the reason poverty has not been solved in America is because as a capitalist society, you need to point to a group of people and say, you don't want to be that, keep working. And that's what keeps the middle class working, is the threat of being homeless. And that's just disgusting to me. It's like, but we could solve it, but you'd have a little less money and you don't want that. And that's where I just get so angry and so just like, well, I guess it means nothing.
Right.
And
it does. I guess I hear where you're coming from. But I think that there are plenty of examples of medical situations being taken care of by large corporations to help with, people. There's employers that really do take care of their people. And, I feel like it's, from a corporate standpoint, it's like, well, I'm doing my job, but everybody's like, corporations suck. And it's like, that's not cool. Or like business owners, we were talking the other day, it's like people assume because you own a business that like money's great. And you're like, that's not how that works.
Yeah. But it's also, I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I mean, in quick summary, you know where I'm going. It's that I don't think that all of anyone is evil on any side. And I also don't think that the rich pointing to the poor to keep them poor is always entirely true. I think the other side of it works too. It's like the poor haven't had mechanisms to help them. Like they don't have the tools to know how to overcome. I don't think the top are blocking them from getting there. It's just that
But
they haven't.
why don't they have the tools?
Because they haven't been taught it for generations.
Why haven't they been taught it? We have the ability as a society to teach it, but we don't.
And now the information's out there on how to do it. But habits and culture take time to change, right?
If you have the money and stability to do it, but if you keep people so poor that they're so focused on surviving, they don't have the time, energy, or resources to gain the tools, to learn the things,
I don't disagree. I'm saying I think if you were raised in a Republican world or a Democratic world, you at least start the world off with those viewpoints, and it takes work to break that down. So if you're raised in an impoverished situation right now, you have access to YouTube probably, or some type of social media that does teach you how to come out of that on some level. But
okay, so now you know how to come out of it. Where do you get the resources? You have the knowledge. Where do the resources come from?
what resources do you think you need?
The car to travel to the interview, the suit to look nice for the interview.
Yeah.
Just the most basic things that we take for granted because we never wondered where our next meal was coming from. Mm-hmm. A good night's sleep because you have your own room and your own bed that you're not sharing with how many other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And rewinding.
Sure.
I think when I talk about corporations or eat the rich, I think as an American society, we have such a skewed perception of how much the truly rich have. I think as Americans, you can look at charts like this where they've interviewed people and they ask, how do you think wealth is distributed in this country? And it's a really nice even curve is what people think.
Right.
In reality, it's the 1% is you need double lines on some of these graphs,
Yes.
and then there is this gentle curve in the middle, and then there's so much poverty.
Right.
And I think, when people start hearing wealth distribution and eat the rich, I think a lot of people who are well off and who work for a living
Right.
start to think people are coming after me. And it's no.
Yeah.
We're talking about the people who have more money than they could spend in 40 lifetimes and they're just holding on to it. We're talking about the people who literally don't work. All they do is invest money and then invest that money and then invest that money. And that's where their money comes from having money.
Right.
That's my problem. I have no problem with people working hard and having nice things because of that.
Yeah.
I
think I also, sorry.
No.
I want to clarify one other thing. I think when I'm trying to, maybe it sounds like I'm trying to oversimplify the problem of becoming wealthy or succeeding from a perspective of being impoverished and not having the tools. I think it has more to do with what I'm hoping for in the mindset standpoint, not an average lay of the land. For the sake of some kid that's poor and is feeling entrepreneurial and wants to go out and try, I don't want that kid to feel like the message is, but you just don't have the tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
when in reality, you could not buy a coffee one time, take $2, figure out how to make $2 into 4 or 5 or 15 or,
And my argument is how many of those kids are buying coffee to begin with?
I'm not saying fine, but anything.
I hear you.
I'm saying anything that you got for free, go learn how to flip it or sell it. Like there are ways to do it, and there are examples all over the place of people becoming massively successful out of impoverished situations.
I don't disagree with you. There's always an example of Oprah. Absolutely.
Right. Who's that? Just kidding.
I'm good. I guess my thing is yes, people can do that.
Yeah.
But while they're busy doing that, you have someone who is just handed that. And they're already however many years ahead because they didn't have to spend X number of years just getting the capital to do the thing that someone else's parents gave them the money for. And I'm speaking as someone who has had everything I ever wanted, like and generational wealth and all of that. Hard work has to be part of the equation. It has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to discount anyone who has worked hard and said, yeah, you worked hard, but now it's for the rest of us. I guess my point is, I think we just have such a skewed idea of what wealth distribution in this country, in this world looks like.
Yep.
And that I'm not talking about, middle-class people. I'm not talking about even people who make substantially more than the rest of us.
Right.
I'm talking about the people who have more money than they could ever hope to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And why is it okay that they just get to hoard it? And here's the thing, too, it's all made up.
Mm-hmm.
Money is made up.
It's pretend, right?
It's pretend. It's numbers in the ether.
Yeah. In fact, yeah. Tip number one from a impoverished standpoint or whatever is that money's made up.
Yeah.
It's fake. Yeah. That's as soon as you understand that, it's a lot easier to go make.
Yeah. But it's fake, except we all put a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? We believe in it. We trust in it. We put a lot of faith in it, and it's fake. Mm-hmm. Just like religion. Except for stage managers. They're real gods.
They're real gods.
They're real, humble gods.
Amazing. I love it. That's so funny. What do you want the world to know about your perspective and how you're going to solve all the problems?
Put stage managers in charge. Done.
I love it.
That's my solution.
I love it.
Love more, hate less. Do acid. No, I'm just kidding.
Pete.
Yeah. We need to be more connected to each other. And one of your previous, I had the luxury of watching some of your podcasts before they aired. And the person you're talking to about social media and stuff like that. And we're completely addicted to living in our own heads and our own spaces. And that's going to have to change. And I think theater is part of that. But I think that's another reason theater is struggling. Because to sit without your phone for 2.5 hours, are you kidding me? No. So I think that's a big piece of it is how do parents, how do teachers, how do artists start encouraging more attention span, encouraging less screen time? I don't know.
Inequity comes a lot from people not having any relationship with other people from a different class or a different community or whatever. And the way to solve that over time is to help with creating real human connections, not from altruism, but true desire to connect and be part of other people's lives. How do we how do you do it? But is there a place where you advocate for theater and even the use of social media in the right ways to make connection happen?
Yeah. Like everything, there has to be a balance. I love social media. I've learned so much on TikTok. People can make fun of it. I love that app. I loved it before it was just a bunch of ads and eligible for commission. That's a whole nother conversation. I do think there is a place for it, but how do we bridge the gap from we've started connection here and this parasocial thing I'm feeling? How do we take that and move it into the real world? And that, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's similar to the Mother Teresa quote of if you want to make the world a better place, take care of your family, love your family. I think it's to connect. Mm-hmm. It's to actually go out and do it, to show up at coffee shops when you could be working at home, or go to a park and say hello to somebody that looks lonely.
Are you familiar with the term third space?
No.
I learned about it on TikTok. And so in Barcelona where you have apartment complexes built around a park or my words are escaping me, but it's a space that you can go where the expectation isn't that you spend money and connect with people. And Europe does this a lot better than we do. But we got to, exactly what you're saying, I think we need to figure out ways to create third spaces, places that we go. And I do think theater is sort of that. Sort of. It's not, but where do we go to build community?
For you, it has been that, right?
For me, it has been. And for a lot of people, that's church. And we're becoming a far less religious country. And I think it goes either way. People are either going hard into religion or going away from that and not finding any community. And it's... Yeah, and I guess the question is not how do we stop using our phones, because that's never going to happen. How do we build community and make space for both?
Yeah, like for me, I'll go play disc golf and I meet new people and they're cool and they're different. They're all different backgrounds, like completely. And it's awesome. All right, so the answer is to connect more.
Connect more. Duh. We solved it.
Love it. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. My name is Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act.
I hope this is a passion project for you and a joyful project for you, but I also hope that it turns into something that connects with people.